Whoa, there I am. I'm way over here. Hello, everyone. Richard Carlton. Today is an interesting day. It's a one-off day. I don't know we'll have another day like this in the near future. Calvin, are you there? Calvin is there, but I don't see Calvin.
I am here, yes.
Good. All right, you're ready to go. Well, that's what happens when you're like
I'm
running
ready
to
to
the
go.
bathroom at the last second and you don't like think about that in advance. So today is kind of a weird open question answer day, but it's really strange because so here's what I want to lay on you folks. This is actually a pretty interesting conversation. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here to my Dropbox. I'm going to find the Andre folder here. And this is the Andre folder. So Andre is one of you. He's one of you that watches the videos here. And I'm not entirely sure when he shows up. It almost seems like he always shows up kind of late, or maybe he doesn't say anything. I'm not entirely sure. But this is a guy who sends me sample files about alternate ways of doing things. So he's inspired by what he sees, and he creates these sample files, and he's been sending these to me for like 10 days, 2 weeks. Like every other third day, I'll get a new sample file from him. And it very much reminds me of the dead bird conversation where you have a cat and it brings you really cool things it's killed. And so in Andre's case, he's created some really cool sample files. So I wanted to show you, this is Andre. I told Andre next time he has to smile, right? But this is Andre. He's really an awesome guy, and he wants to contribute to the FileMaker community. So today is Open Q&A Day. It's also Andre Day. Yay! And so Scott's there, and you folks are here. David learning. So what we're going to do is we're going to answer questions, kind of open Q&A. But Calvin, I brought extra help today because on some of Andre's demos are a little technical, and it's hard to have a conversation with you and for me to troubleshoot a file that I didn't write. And so there's like 3 or 4 files. They cover completely different topics, but they all kind of fall along some of the things that we've been doing. So if you missed some broadcast, maybe you weren't in the virtualist broadcast, for example, or the API broadcast or whatever, then we might be talking about some of the stuff that we did there. So don't let that throw you too badly. So Calvin, are you ready to show your screen and kind of walk through some of these? And then while you're doing that, I'm going to be posting the link so people can get the file that you're talking about, right? So does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah, that works.
All right, cool. And then Andre theoretically will show up to the YouTube side. Now there's 2 conversations. So once again, let me do the perfunctory housekeeping, as Claris would say. This broadcast is brought to you by fmtraining.tv. It's being broadcast in 1080 high definition, both to Twitch and to YouTube. You can watch on either one. You can comment on either one, which is fine. Just keep in mind that I am watching both conversations, right? This side is on one and this side is on this, so it hurts my head sometimes when there's like a lot of conversation going on. But for best results, I suggest you set the resolution as high as you can for your connection and make it full screen so you can see the code and some of the underlying material. This is going to be recorded, and it will be, of course, posted, and then we will clean up any goofy parts of the broadcast, but largely this will be recorded and you will be able to see this even if you're not here live. Now, keep in mind, as a perfunctory kind of part, this is fmtraining.tv. That's who we are here. I'm Richard Carlton. It's 30 years of me doing the FileMaker work, and basically in training about the last 10 years of that. And so this is the upcoming schedule for live broadcast. So it's Open Q&A Day, but it really should be titled Andre Day, right? So we've had Tony White Day. We've had Hansa Day from 24U. Today is Andre Day. Calvin, are you ready to jump in and do some of this?
I'm ready to jump in. So we've got we've got 4 different files, and one of them, there's a few iterations of it that we're going to look at, and we've got a few cool things that's going on that they put together with the file, some features in FileMaker. So this first option, this first file is just a list view, but it's showing how we can use we're using a script trigger to change the way some of the keys behave. So in this, move to record 1, and I'm going to just arrow down, and you'll notice as I arrow down, we're navigating to the next record, and that's not normal FileMaker behavior. If I jump down here and arrow up, it's going up
So sorry,
Uh,
I'm reading Christian's question over here. He's asking
yeah.
about the split data UI model, and I just wanted to vomit, so I'm having to restrain myself. So when you get through some of this, I will go back and take questions. These questions are definitely on different topics.
Okay. So so as I arrow up, uh, with on the keyboard, it's going to the previous record. Arrow down goes to the next record. And let's go ahead and just see how this is working. I'll open up the script debugger and arrow down, and you will see it's on layout keystroke. Every time there's a keystroke, it will run this script on the layout, and then it checks to see make sure we're on the right layout, and then it navigates to the choice. Now it also has a get trigger modifier keys, which that's looking to see if there's another key that we've selected besides just the key, the arrow up or arrow down. Let me go ahead and close this and show you what happens. If I hold Command or Control on Windows and select arrow down, we'll go to, maybe it's Shift, but it was Shift. So if I hold Shift and arrow down, it will go to the last record. Shift, arrow up, we'll go to the first record. How's it doing that? Let's go ahead and try this once again. I'll hold Shift and arrow down, and here we get the keystroke, code get keystroke. And if we look over here, we'll see that the keystroke is that 31. That's the arrow down. And the modifier is the trigger modifier key is the number 1, which was Shift. And let's go ahead and walk through that. And we'll see, I guess maybe I have to hold down Shift while this is running. So it goes to the record next. So because we are using you have to hold down the Shift while it calls this on line 33, this get function to get the modifier key. But that's what how we have the it captures that shift, which is pretty nice. A lot of times I have users that have they want something that has a more Excel spreadsheet kind of feel, and they really like the arrow up and arrow down to go from line to line. Usually build that in a portal, but in this case it's demoing it in a list view. So really neat way to modify the way that FileMaker handles those actions with the arrow up and arrow down.
Okay, so let me inject here a little bit. I think it's really fantastic sample file. Andre really got it great. And of course, we're having Andre Day, and he's not even here, so I'm not sure how that works. So so it's Andre Day, everyone. Once again, if you haven't seen Andre, we'll put his picture up in a little bit. Actually, click on that for me. Is there a, did I couple these files? The problem is that I'm really swamped. Yeah, hit the about right there. I put a couple of these files have about pages on them a little bit, and there's some notes that he threw in there about it as well. I'm really swamped right now, so I'm not going to be able to do too many of these sample files in through probably middle of June, because we're going into 19 launch mode. It's literally like when everyone's in the nuclear missile silos and the submarines, and everyone has to turn their keys at the same time. It's very stressful, and so that's kind of we're in this mode. So I want to thank Andre for all this stuff. And if you have sample files you want to send me, just understand that they're going to go into kind of a delayed existence. And probably later June or July when we'll be able to get to it. So if you're hoping that I talk about your sample file next week, that's not going to be happening. So I just posted the Arrow nav sample. Keep in mind there's about a 1 to 2 minute delay in our conversation and what you hear when you type it. Hang on, I'll do this real quick. When you type the information, we see it immediately. I am responding over here to questions. Does that kind of cover that first sample file, Calvin?
Yeah, we've covered the first sample file, and we're ready to.
Okay,
look
so
at
let
the
me
next
answer
one.
some questions here. So there's some pent up demand here. So I'm going to just go through this. It's going to take us about 5 or 10 minutes. So
okay.
Christian asks, basically, this is what he says. For those of you who not seen this in Twitch, you're on YouTube, because there's some people on YouTube too. What would you recommend for an extensive FileMaker project should you be running on a FileMaker server front end and then have a dedicated back end FileMaker file? That would give you the option to simply change the front end when having updates. And second, about security permissions, those scenarios, what do you think? This is called the data separation model. It's not a model that FileMaker Claris Corporation endorses. They don't use it themselves. It's a strategy of development that is kind of comes from the SQL, the heavy iron, what we call heavy iron world, the big database world, multi-million dollar databases and stuff like that, or $100 million databases. I think it sucks, and I think it sucks bad. What was that line yesterday, the day before? It sucks dead bunnies through a straw. Here's the problem. So it's even in my book, and I even have this is like a religious war in the FileMaker community. I actually have, there's an artwork in there we draw where the monks are praying to the separation model, because the people who get into separation model, it becomes a religion, and they're really committed to it, even though the data looks a little sketchy on it. And the issue is that they say, this is what they say, and Christian's got it right. He's asking us a great question, but I'll tell you why the assumption is wrong. They say, oh, if I have to update the file for the customer, all I have to do is a front end, I don't have to update the back end, okay? Calvin, how many times in a project is a customer ask you to change a layout item and it has no bearing upon the underlying structure? Like there's no edits to a field, there's no additions of a field, there's no changes to a field. How often does that happen?
Almost never.
And that's the problem. I didn't even tell Calvin this was going to happen. He just answered the question. Because whenever people ask for things, what happens is they say, let's do this, and oh, by the way, that calculation that's in there is wrong, you got to change it. And so the whole idea behind the separation model is that you're mucking with the front end and you never muck with the back end. If you built a back end database with fields that were like, you just named it field 1, field 2, you didn't give them names, you just defined like an arsenal of 1,000 fields, and an arsenal of 1,000 fields, and then somewhere you mapped those, you knew what they were, then I guess you could build a solution where you didn't have to update the front end and the back end. The issue is people are trying to save time in rolling out updates. But that's really a non-starter conversation anymore. That's not an excuse anymore, because now there's the FileMaker data migration tool, which will take a multi-file solution, a multi-table solution, like a 900 megabyte file or a gigabyte file, and you put the old file next, the live file, you take it offline, and we've got videos on this. I could send you the videos, but you put the old file that you're in development, the users had live data. You have the new one, which you've been working offline, and you tested it, and you're happy with it. And there's a very simple process that uses like all the cores on the computer. FileMaker never uses all the processors on the computer, especially in Pro. It's lucky if it ever uses 2. And people have like, I've got a 12 processor computer and I kick ass. No, you don't, because FileMaker Pro is basically a single threaded application for all practical purposes. There are exceptions to the rule if you're sorting a portal or something, but the reality is it's a single threaded application. They can only do one thing at a time. And so FileMaker made this tool that uses all the cores that you can possibly give to it, and it moves all the data from file A to file B, and it does it in seconds, like less than a minute to move a gigabyte file. Something that would take days to move the data over is now seconds. So if you have that tool, then why are you afraid of separating the data? Because it's easier to update. It's already easier to update. So then you say, well, but I only have to change the front end file. That's not true. Most of the time you're going to have to change both the back end file and the front end file, which means you actually have to update 2 files, which is twice the pain in the rear end to do, because you have to do it twice. Now you have the data migration tool, and it can help you move the 2 files, but why not just use the 1 file, right? I mean, so that's what I think. So it becomes a religion, and people who will lose their crap in here will, they're not surfaced yet, but when they see the video, it will elicit all sorts of, I object, right? And it's like, and I don't know what to tell you folks, right? I mean, it literally, we have what we call the data separation monks out there, and it literally is it's not a conversation you can have about like Anchor Buoy or something. I mean, I understand if people don't want to use it, there is performance improvements by using Anchor Buoy, but say you want to use this, what's the one that Geist uses that Sindelar promote?
Selector connector.
Selector connector. So you use that. It's slower, but there are benefits that you can see to using it. But when you talk about it, people don't get really wrapped around the axle about it being a religion. The separation model, I don't know what it is, but I mean, it's really, people get married to it, really married to it. And it's, and I just, the problem is all the time, here's what happens. So here's the other side of the world. You have developers out there that say, let's use separation model. And then they go away because they don't want to deal with the project anymore because it's unwieldy. Why is it unwieldy? Because it's about twice too complicated, right? You got 2 files and the security and everything going on. And then they call me, because I got a team of like 30 people. Hey, we need help. What do we have? Separation model. I said, well, whatever budget you have, just double it, because it's going to take about twice the effort to do whatever we need to do with it. So, and the engineers are like, oh, this is horrible, because you can't really give separation model to a junior or mid-level staff to work on, because they generally, it's to even interact at a very high level between 2 files where it's going back and forth, and security concerns and file access concerns, and it's beyond the scope of what a junior or mid-level engineer mostly can do. It becomes, to really do it well, assuming you're still willing to update both files, it takes a pretty established senior. So yeah, so Christian, yeah, so I you don't have to apologize at all. I understood it was a question from a traditional development environment. They separate the structure of the file, from the data, but FileMaker can't do that really. It's not easy to do it. And in some data systems, forcibly, in one file is like data, one file is interface, one file is, what they call stored procedures and things like that, which are basically programs, which are scripts, right? So you got to learn how to kind of translate that kind of conversation. So I'm going to jump. I've killed the anchor buoy, the separation model. Do layouts and scripts and FileMaker. Elzo's asking this. This is like a low-hanging fruit where he just kind of lofted a question of, and I have a bug in here that's flying around in my studio. Elzo's asking, do we have to number the scripts and they have to be in some sort of sequential order? No, there's no order to what they need to be in. All I will tell you is that if you go to starting point in any solution that's reasonably complicated, what you're going to run into is, let me see if I can just open this up real quick. This is a beat up one here. But the problem is that you get a lot of scripts going and whatnot, and it's hard to tell someone, like I go to a customer and they've been working on a file for 5 years or something, right? And you come in and you say, hey, let's print we have a problem printing the label. And so you look for the print label script, right? And they have like 5 scripts with identical names, print label. And you have no idea which one is broke, right? And so it's much easier to come in and we will number these, but then the numbers will get out of sequence, and we will go back and I'll assign a junior engineer to go back and renumber them, and they put gaps in here. But we can say, hey, we got this print script, it's script 87, for example, and it needs to be debugged or something, right? Or go work on it, or never finished, or whatever. So it's easier just to identify that, oh, we have this invoicing kind of script. It's script 1251. Go check that out. Same thing for layouts. We're working on a layout. What do we want to do? Go to the layout that says print. Okay, well, damn, that's only like 8 million layouts have that. Print this, print that, print whatever. Or a report. Important report. Double secret probation report, right? And if you know where double secret probation comes from, without Googling it, Slack that. So anyway, so we number the layouts too. So I say L304. We need to fix that. So it makes it a lot easier. Now, on a really small project, it doesn't make sense. But when you start building elaborate solutions, it becomes an issue. So that was that. That was that.
And one thing to say there also is that sometimes it feels like it's taking longer to put numbers on your scripts and to put them in order and make sure it
yeah, of course it does. So we give it to a junior engineer to do. Yeah.
It always saves time in the long run. Clean code is faster code.
Documenting it or being able to find stuff besides print label. Now, see, here's the thing. FileMaker doesn't use the name. It doesn't use the names at all. But you don't know that. It uses a hidden ID, and then that's how it tracks it. So the fact that you have 4 or 5 scripts that say print label, it doesn't care. It'll let you do stupid stuff like that because it's very loving and forgiving, right? So anyway. Okay, so I'm going to go back. I'm going to hit Elzo real quick here, and then I'm going to backtrack. It's off topic. I'm curious if... Yeah, it's like, okay, Elzo on the iOS apps, that's like, okay, I'm not even going to remotely go there. If we want to have a conversation about trying to update files, that's a whole... If we have another, bring that back another day. I'm just going to pretend I didn't see that. Are they, who's they, using some data separation update? No. Okay.
I think that's a question about
The
the
iOS
data
apps.
migration tool.
Well, I don't understand the context there because he's saying it's off topic, but I'm curious how iOS apps, for example, do their updates. A legitimate
Oh,
iOS application from Xcode, and we've done Xcode. I've personally done Xcode. Um, you have preferences when you write an app on the iOS. You can write data to directories and stuff that are your directory. And what ends up happening is that then when you update the app, that data stays there, right? And then you can once it uninstalls your executable code and reinstalls a new executable code, then you can go and grab that data that you saved in there, right? So you can save data in directories. There's actually a built-in database system in the operating system itself where you can define tables and stick data in there. It's a SQL-like, I think, kind of database table thing. So that's a whole separate conversation. It's a whole career that has nothing to do with FileMaker. So that's, yeah, so we're talking about, it's like asking how does Slack or Dropbox update itself on your computer very carefully, but they don't always do it carefully. And they don't use data separation. Once again, ELSO, data separation model assumes that you never change the back end, right? And so what we do is we put launchers to the people, and if you're doing FileMaker on iOS, you give them launcher files. They can open up your file. Now, if you want to put the split, if you want to put the UI part of the file on their local computer, that's fine, and you can go through that effort. But understand, you're going to have to update two items. Update two items all the time. Now you're saying, well, it won't have to load the interface. Okay, but here's the thing: the loading of the interface. In FileMaker, modern FileMaker, ever since FileMaker 15 or 16, FileMaker loads it once and it caches it on the machine, on the chips, on the flash memory, wherever your hard drive's at. When I open Starting Point, for example, we took this copy of Starting Point right here that you see. We put it on a server in Japan. I don't know if our Japanese folks are here. That's awesome if they're here. We put it there, and then we changed the name so the local client had never opened it before. And then I opened it. And the open process from the time I put the password in to the time that it gave me control on the home screen here was 21 seconds. And I go, it's not great, but that's okay. And then starting with FileMaker 15 or 16, they started caching the data. And even when you quit FileMaker and come back, it still caches the data and it checks to make sure it's up to date. So then going forward, every time I opened it, it was 7 seconds. It's 300% faster because it saves the data. It's already caching the data. So really you have to load it once. So if you have an interface that's so fat and heavy that you can't pull it through the wire, I guess, but it's not the kind of apps I generally build. I try to build apps that are light and fluffy and that they load quickly. So the idea is that this file here on iOS or on Mac or on Windows, if it's already cached, the 7 seconds is what it needs to load it off the chips, off the machine, and then process the bits, right? It doesn't save the data so much for the most part. Like it can, but mostly what it's trying to save is the file structure, the relationship diagram, the tables and the kind of structure and layout elements, layout objects, script code, I think, for the most part. And so when they first came out, they had a lot of little bugs and things weren't updating quite right, but it works pretty good. So now it's cached. So it loads it once slowly. That's the penalty. And then largely, if you don't change the layouts, if you change all the layouts and you rummage around with them, then the system will say, "Hope this layout's changed. I'm just going to go to the hard drive. I'm going to find that temporary hidden cache version, throw it in the trash, download a new one," right? So that's what it does. So that's a serious under the hood conversation right there. How hard is it to put two files back into one? That's funny because Christian mentioned the Ron at MailSoft has a separation model. It can be done. It can be put them together, but I think that, yeah, I hate it when developers lead customers down bad roads like this. I mean, I guess there is a case, like if you had a really, 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 really fat and heavy front-end interface and you had a really bad internet connection, then I could see trying to do some sort of data. But if you have that kind of performance problem, then you might want to use the custom web publishing, which is the data API, which is another question we have. So let's talk about that real quick. So you have a FileMaker file, okay? and you want to access, so see this data, you notice how it always changes every day. How does it change? It's not because I have slave web designers that are hiding like little web gnomes that are running at night doing code changes while you are all asleep. This is actually live. This is live data. This is an HTML page with PHP using the FileMaker Data API. What it does is the FileMaker Data API. It's like a fourth client. So we got Pro, Go, WebDirect, and there's this fourth client which is like legit programming, and it's literally code. And if you want to see it, we can show it to you. But at the end of the day, this code, which is HTML code, goes through this gateway, and it has to have a security authentication and username, password, and it retrieves this data and shows it to us. So once again, for those of you who've not seen this before, I'm going to open up FileMaker. I'm going to open up the recent file where I have and so it is getting the data out of here. So if I say the future events, with this PHP page there, it says, goes to FileMaker and says, give me, not with layouts and stuff, but just code, give me the data for the next 6 days. So it goes into FileMaker. It literally does a search for the next 6 days. And there's today, day 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 down here. And it's taking this data out of here, and it's formatting it and putting it into a custom web page. Okay, that's what custom web publishing is. The data API is the latest kind of technical mechanism to go through to the FileMaker server or cloud and to get that data back. So that's what the data API is. We have training on that in our Pro course. And we actually have some really cool tools that are out there right now, just come out, that we're trying to start to promote that make doing this a whole lot easier, right? And because if you have to code it, you got to like program, like really coding, lines of code. And we have a tool that for $79 will jumpstart a lot of this for you. It's really kind of a neat tool. Cool. So, separation model really makes a difference on a slow wide area network, ? David Angel. Well, okay, so here's the deal. We're back to this data separation model. It seems to me that a bunch of you probably are using this or thinking about using it. There are things that you can do. So the only thing left that the separation model brings to you that you could possibly say would be helpful in performance is if you really have a big, fat, heavy front end and your internet connection is really horrible to the client, from the data to the client. And then that big front end could be there, and it could open up and then access just the tables of data on the backside. It's really the idea is that you have this big, ugly, it's like literally if I went to starting point, which is hiding out over here, wherever it went, here's starting point. And basically if I took all the, it's hiding down here. If I took, for example, this interface here, and so this was in one file, and then in another file over here, if I just say, I'm trying to like visualize. This is normally what we do in video because we animate it, but I'm here and I'm stuck in a little tiny box here on the corner of your screen. And so you went over here and you took all the tables over here. So in this file over here was all the tables on like the right side, and on the left side was just the layouts. And these layouts, to access the data, would go through the internet to get these tables of data. It's a real hack. It's a pain in the ass. It's hard to support. And the only residual benefit to it anymore is if you really have a really, really horrible connection between these two things. Every time I have an engineer who has to do data separation, they come to me and go, I got to do data separation, right? Like we were looking at having a different engineer help Ron, and it turned out that only the most senior people can really do data separation successfully. We had potentially a more inexpensive person who could do the work, except that data separation requires suddenly you have to have a master's degree in multi-file relationship management, security, which is a huge deal, and then some sort of overarching strategy to update both of them separately. So it's just not good. Okay, so I'm looking for questions. We don't, so we're going to pick up Andre sample file number 2. Calvin, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Yeah.
So the next one, there's 3 different files here that kind of show a progression, and so we've got a number of portals here. We'll see this first portal is a master detail portal. So as I select on the left, you'll see the record the current record's changing. And then you'll see on these other portals that these portals are changing based on the current record. And what's interesting about this, though, is that there's 4 different table occurrences, And each one there's a string of them. So let's look at what the relationship graph looks like. So we have the states, and let's see if we can minimize this so we can see the portals at the same time. And this is a really great thing to review and see how it works, just because understanding how these relationships work together, seeing portals on one layout from a grandchild or a great-grandchild relationship can be confusing sometimes. And so here we have the states portal here, which is our master detail. It shows us everything. Then we have got counties, and we see a list of counties. And you'll notice I have Pima County highlighted, for Pima, Arizona. And then the third one is school districts. And the question that some people might think, because Pima is highlighted, I should only be seeing the Pima school districts, but that's not true. Because the context of the layout, the entire layout is states, then we are seeing all of the school districts for all of the counties for Arizona. And so we're not pointed to one specific, we're not filtering this school districts portal at all. And the same would be true with the school board. We're seeing every school board member for the whole state of Arizona. And the way that that's possible is because we're in the context of the state. Now, if we moved this layout context to, let's go ahead and do that, just see what happens. Because it's only one table group, we can do that without breaking anything too much. So let's change it to counties and say OK. And we'll notice that now there's only one state, and we're seeing only the school district for the selected county, and we're seeing the school board members for that entire county. And the changing the context of a layout and how the portals will react is something that's really good to know, especially for FileMaker certification. That's one of the things they ask you. And so we're seeing how this changes based on the context. Now, it's not really very useful to, let's change this layout back to the context of states. It's not very useful seeing 3 portals and not being able to filter them. And that's where the next file comes in. So there's context, step 1. Let's select context, step 2. Now this is a little different. And so you'll see I can select a state, I can select a county, and then I can select a school district. And you'll see as I select them, these portals are changing. How is this one different? Now in this case, instead of relating those relationships based on the ID of the current record, we're using a global ID that is set through a script. So when we select the state, that's again the master detail portal, and then there's a button in the counties portal. When I select that one, it updates this global ID field, which then filters the school district and the school board. And there's again another filter here. Now, one of the problems though with this is that we'll see I have Alaska selected. As soon as I select a different state, you'll see the counties change. But our school districts and our school board hasn't changed. And so I have Kansas selected. Well, Juneau Borough of School District, we know that's Alaska. And the school board is right there is Alaska. So our data can be a little confusing here. So one thing to note, if you use a feature, use something like this, or maybe there's something like this in your app, you'll want to have an record load trigger that clears out those global variables, because as soon as I select one of these, because I haven't selected a county, the school district and school board portals should clear out so I don't get confused about the data. And that kind of wraps up what we're seeing here in this sample file. Let's go to the final context one, and here it's the same as the last as far as the portals go, but in this one we have the option to select a specific school board person to change their information. And so that there's an additional level of being able to select information. Now this is as long as your information isn't confusing people by showing the wrong information, then this isn't this could be one way of setting it up to display the information. In FM Starting Point, we use a relationship called the selected relationship. You'll notice that, for example, in the contact notes area. And so instead of using a grandchild relationship, we're using the child relationship, because the farther away you get from the parent table occurrence, the more latency you'll have looking through those multi-relationships.
Excuse me, I'm sorry, what is latency? You can't talk all tech and not explain stuff, right?
So
hey, stop. When you people hear him say something squirrely like that, I'm over here answering questions online. But if he does something squirrely, you got to call Calvin out and say, hey, Calvin, what are you talking about?
So latency is how long something takes to load, the performance, the speed of the app. Let's just say speed. So as we're using relationships, you'll see here we've got a child, grandchild, great-grandchild, great-great-grandchild relationship that's getting farther and farther away from our main table states. And the farther we have to look for the data, then and the larger those tables are, the slower our app will work. I think in FM Starting Point, the most we have, usually we just work with child relationships. Sometimes we work with grandchild relationships. I don't think FM Starting Point has anything greater than that. And so you want to keep that code. It kind of goes back to that organization and keeping the code clean and fast. I was looking at one app the other day, and they had a string of 9 table occurrences that just went in a series.
Well, and to add to that, Calvin, that makes things much worse over a wide area network, right? So I mean, whenever you start to stress FileMaker, where you see it first is in WebDirect, and then you see it across the wide area network to your other clients. So if you can string that stuff together if you're running a local file, or maybe if the server's sitting on your desk next to you. That's where it becomes tricky.
Yeah. So this is a neat way of viewing your data through these multi-select filtering portals, and then finally get the information you want and update it. And as you're working on your app, just make sure that whatever you do, it's running as fast as possible, so you don't get into any speed hangups.
All right, so that's the second of 4 or 5 files. So we may not be able to get through all these. Yeah, so
second of 4. So the third one is one we've already looked at. So this is that virtual list, and we're looking at a which we talked about. Was that Monday? And so this is something we've already looked at before. But the virtual list here, if we go into Manage Database, we'll see that each of these fields, first name, last name, email, gender, state, is just an unstored calculation looking at this global VL global variable, and grabbing it based on the record number, the information based on the record number. So this is a handy intro to what a virtual list is and how you can display that in a table view. So pretty simple, something we've looked at before. And are we ready for the last one?
Yeah, the something is, we can do that one right now. I will.
Yep. So this one is, I'm always excited about new layout features, or techniques, I should say. So one thing I like about this is we've got the master detail on the left side. And this is each row is really simple. We've just got a name, and that's really fast to scroll through and see what's in this table. But now we've got this. So we've got a button, a simple view, and that's what's the default. Then we've got this detail view, and by selecting detail view, it takes that same. It's just a tab panel, so we're navigating to a different slide panel. And it's a portal based on the same, it's a master detail portal again, but this time each line is a little taller, and it's giving us the contact address. A lot of times in master details portals will want to see not just a name, maybe a little bit more information. And so
I think that the key, the cursor up and down, works there too. By the way, I think on that. Does he have that? Yeah, he has. That
yeah, he does. Yeah.
He has that working, which is really cool. And then also do an edit on one of the fields on the right. He's put a lot of like cute things in here. See how that does that? So Andre actually has now showed up. He has now showed up about 45 minutes after we've been talking about him behind his back, telling everyone how wonderful he is. He showed up. And all these sample files are purely for education, for learning, so feel free to take them apart. But yeah, it's impressive. I like this UI. I like the little line on there with the yellow on there. It's very clever. So he's done a great job with this.
Yeah, it has a real a web feel to it, the way that he's highlighting these fields, and it really makes that whatever is active, your active field, really pop, and really nice.
All right, so he might say something more. Where is the sorted list? Did we do that one already, or was that the one? Because we started this a while back, right? So you've already done something arrow key navigation. The sort list is the one. That's the one that you were not.
Yeah, we thought we were going to run out of time before we could get to that one.
Well, he's really proud of this one. I think we have to take a swing at it. The rub is with it is that we didn't write it, and he's like kind of over here, and he's not in a position to really answer questions. We could pop that up here. So why don't you take an effort to explain what's going on, Calvin?
All right. So we've got this the two lists here, and you'll notice as I change this, you'll see our list count changes below. And I can sort the list. So we've got this button. This is sort, and it's using just a sort values function to sort it. So I just duplicated a bunch of things. You'll see that a bunch of these are duplicates because I duplicated it. But just this is just a text field, and by selecting the sort, which let's go ahead and look at what the function is that does that. Here, we're just saying sort values, and we're pointing it to the field, and it's sorting it, which is pretty awesome. Let's go ahead through that. Now, if I select unique, it's going to the script takes this list of fields and only eliminates duplicates in the list. So let's go ahead and see how that works. I'll open up my script debugger. And sometimes when you're managing lists of IDs or lists of names, it can be helpful to make those a unique list. And so we only have the items that match. Now you'll notice these items this one's sorted, this one's not sorted. And let's say merge and see what happens. So here it's comparing the line of records here to each line in the list of values on the left to each line of values on the right.
That is pretty cool. That is.
Yeah, and showing whether they match or not. So here you see none of these actually match. Let's go ahead and sort this one though. So now we've got them sorted, and say merge. So here,
that's very cool. Ah.
It took each row and compared it, and determined. Now, if I do, let's say load list, I think that will go back to what we had before. I'm going to copy this and put it in here. And now let's say merge and see what happens. Oh, these matched. Okay, so let's try
the top half still matches, right? And then the bottom half doesn't, right? This is actually super educational right here. It's like our random grab bag, our Deadbird database for the day. Yeah. So Andre Andre only shows up about 40 minutes late, and he doesn't even know we've been talking about him for the last 40 minutes before this. So kind of funny. Yeah. So this is a cool tool. So we posted these in here, and then there was one. Have we posted 1, 2, 3? Have we done all 5 of these? I think there's 5. There's 5 records. Something, arrow key navigation, list sort, contacts in multiple portals. 1, 2, 3.
Yep.
Something, and then record number was the first one. Yeah. So we've done all 5 of these. Yeah. So these are really excellent. So once again, thank you for Andre and the folks out there. It's definitely educational to take these things apart. And a lot of you, of course, could think where this might be useful, but you don't have an immediate need. So the thought is to kind of put this back in your data bank somewhere. And remember that there's this list comparison manipulation capability that you go back here and watch the video or look at the sample file. It's pretty awesome. So Andre, there were people asking questions about how to do this, and during the virtual list conversation, we didn't get to that person. I guess it was YouTube chat, and someone had asked a question about how to do this. So we're actually going back and answering a question 2 weeks later, but we're answering it because Andre actually built the sample file for it. So pretty awesome, actually. So yeah, today is Andre Day. So Andre, you missed that. We put your picture up there. I don't know how you're late to your own day, right? It's like your own birthday party, right? So yeah, so he shows up late to his own birthday party. Yeah, so Zane says thanks to Andre. So Andre's kind of on the YouTube side of stuff. So the folks over there. Christian says applause to Andre. Yep. So pretty awesome. So we put a couple about pages on a couple of the files, but I'm actually in overload mode because I'm trying to get all my ducks lined up for launching the next release of FileMaker. So as a reminder, everyone, if you do have sample files you want to kick out, just a reminder that you might send them to me, but they're probably not going to get processed or in a serious way displayed until we get through launch, which will be later in June or early July, whatever that is. So pretty awesome stuff. So let's see, what else? Other questions, Calvin?
Another thing that I think people say about the data separation is that if it's a vertical market solution, they can issue front-end updates to everybody without having to move their data. And with the new data migration tool, that's just not relevant anymore. I have a client that uses a 360works deploy app, and they have a number of people on a vertical market app, and they just push a button, and all the changes that we've done for the past week get pushed out, and all the those clients.
Okay, so stop. So I have not had a chance to play using Deploy 1 or Deploy 2, the new one. The new one?
Jacob actually set it up.
Recently?
Yeah.
Okay, so 360works. I'm going to take control of my screen briefly here. The 360works is a company. Jesse Barnum's the CEO, really good guy. I'm probably a better trainer, but he is definitely smarter than I am. It's not even like close. I feel like I'm lucky to even breathe the same oxygen as this guy in the same room. So 360works, they make a bunch of products. They're, to my knowledge, the only FileMaker consultancy that's ever made money on plugins and products. Every other company, and you can name them who they are, and I've talked to their executive management teams, and they do not make money building products for the FileMaker platform. Maybe Base Almas Goya does. I think they probably do, maybe, but mostly companies. 360 is one of the few companies. So they have this product right here called Deploy. This allows you to seamlessly roll out a new version, press a button, and it goes. So Calvin, I have not really deployed this tool everywhere. So you are going to give us an in-depth review real quick. You have 5 minutes to tell us about this tool and what does it do and do you like it?
Okay, so yes, I like it. I'm just going to start off with that. So what happens is that there's a vertical market app that a number of people use, and each of the offices have their own copy of the app and their own data.
Sorry. On the web page, I know you can't see it. It says, the first thing on their site says, updating a production database, migrating data, adding improvements to a live solution, all could be a pain. Say goodbye to the complexities of this data separation model. Oh, it's like a knife through the heart. So keep going, Cal. I'm sorry. I just
Yeah,
had to. I'm looking at this in giant size 24 font on their website. So
right. There's a number of offices. I don't even know how many offices that have this app, and each of them have unique data. There's no there's no overlap in the data between the different offices, and I work on the development copy where we're building the newest, best features that we want to distribute to everybody. And then however often the owner of the app wants to distribute it to everybody, which has been maybe once a week, he pushes a button and it updates the app across the board. So the next day when everybody comes back to the office, they have the latest updates that I built for them. And they're excited because there's not this huge hassle of upgrading to the latest version of their FileMaker app. And he's thrilled about it because he doesn't have to do that conversion. The 360 Deploy plugin just takes care of the whole thing.
all right. So for those of you want to know about this, now I'm going to get my $5,000 commission check from 360. Their product. It's and I was bringing up a little comparison thing here about. So this is the old way of importing your data. Once again, that's like sucking dead bunnies through a straw. Okay. This one here is a command line tool. Technically, there's a wrapper app made by Productive Computing, which makes it simpler, which is pretty good. So it doesn't require the command line either. But really, you still have to kind of manually handhold the process. And so if you want something that does the whole enchilada, then this is it. And once again, here's the thing. Here's a really important concept, and this is why I'm big on this. So I'm a responsive individual. I make sure the engineers are working for me are responsive. They're not responsive. They're not engineers working for me very long. And so it's important that we have responsive people. If there's problems, that things get fixed, etc. I mean, we want to be paid for our time, but I kind of expect, level of professionalism. Well, 360 works. Why do I endorse them? Oh, because their code is perfect and it works perfect every time. No, sometimes they ship a pile of crap, okay, in a product, right? But I've actually seen them work through the night, through the next day, through the next night to fix the bugs to get it made it right. So the customer who had the problem had their issue resolved because they cared enough to work their asses off to get it fixed. That matters to me. I'd rather have a product that has bugs in it, because to run around and say you're not going to have bugs is a joke, but to have a company that kicks ass and gets in there and really hammers out. They were in my hotel suite for like 2 nights, all night, Sam and Jesse Barnum beating the crap out of their app product to make it work correctly in front of the audience. And they work like I do, and when you get hard people, what they always say, if you want something done, give your job to a busy person, right? And that's those guys are like that. They're really quite good. So I don't endorse a lot of companies like that. They have my number one highest endorsement, period. So now you can still love me and hire me and come out and watch the live training, but if you need a product that does any of their stuff in here, Deploy tool is awesome. Cloud Mail, kind of useful as long as you don't have to customize the mails too much. Charting plugin, yeah, maybe. Email plugin, I still use that a lot. I don't use that too much. MirrorSync, we use a lot of syncing. We probably ought to do a syncing webinar or solution, live stream or something. We could do that potentially. Plastic is their credit card processor, although with APIs these days, I don't know how long that will live on, because some of these things are like out of date. Like we talked about digital document management, and this is that super container product which predates that. And FileMaker actually had the conversation internally, and the people that were in this meeting aren't there anymore at the company, but basically they knew that 360works had this product that saved their butts, and they decided they want to build this into the product in the form of containers with remote storage, right? And Nick Hunter, who will verify the conversation, that the one of the VPs who's no longer there basically said, to 360, we're going to put this in, and it was okay. I mean 360 was making a lot of money, and I mean, like, you can guess whatever number it is. It was a lot of money on a per month basis because they had such a great product. 80% of my customers use it. So, when you build a great product, and if everyone uses it, odds are someone's going to copy it and probably try to put you out of business. Luckily, 360works is always innovating, making new products. They make the Deploy is their newest one, really kicks ass. It does. And it leverages that data migration tool. So FileMaker came out with this command line data migration tool, which makes things very fast. They built this whole upload download thing so it works with that data migration tool. So it's really quite good, and Calvin just endorsed it. So anyway, pretty interesting. Once again, a reminder, this is sponsored by fmtraining.tv. If you'd like to support this channel and support Andre and support everyone so we can keep coming back and showing you cool stuff, send a thank you note to Andre on YouTube. And or buy our training. And if you buy our training and keep it up to date, that helps us fund the channel. So if you're watching this video and you want to see all our other more organized videos, not this spastic hand waving thing that goes on here, check out this training here. This is a complete training bundle. You can drill down and see this information here. It comes with FileMaker Pro, all the other cool tools that you need. If you want the video training only, it's right here, and you can get it for $50 off this price. Send us an email to support@rcconsulting.com, and my team will send you a coupon immediately. You'll get a coupon, so this becomes $149. So, any final questions? Thanks, Bunny. So, it's good for me. Yeah, tomorrow, Bunny, will be good for you. And actually, tomorrow and Friday will be good for Bunny. It'll be Bunny approved. So, those of you wondering what the hell we're talking about, tomorrow and the next day, we're going to start off in this area right here. It will get a little bit more advanced as that happens. Today was kind of a grab bag day, and it drifted over here between here and here for the most part. There was some basic stuff. But yeah, we'll be focused more tomorrow on basic relationship, live data versus, maybe one-time data that you snapshot, right? Snapshot the data, then you don't update it, right? Kind of important skill set. It's important that you think about it in advance of building a solution. So once again, it'll be Bunny approved. We'll start with the green zone here, and then we'll move around a little bit as necessary. So, so Bunny has a question here, and then I'm going to leave with this question. She's asking, what app do you use on the iPad for FileMaker? You use FileMaker Go. It's a version of FileMaker that's designed for the iPhone and iPad. It's free. It's on Apple's website. And so you build your solution in FileMaker Pro, and then normally you share it. You put it on the server, on cloud or FileMaker server, and then your iPad, using FileMaker Go, can access it. And it's like they took FileMaker Pro, they essentially rewrote it, and they put it on here. However, it doesn't do development. It's only browse mode and find mode and that kind of stuff. There's no layout mode. There's no editing of scripts. You can run scripts. You can do everything a user can do, but there's no development here, right? And the same app works on the phone. They microsize the interface a little bit. So, all right, everyone. I appreciate everyone. Thank you to Andre. Thank you to Bunny, Nathan Schneider. Highly recommends the video course over here. Yes, we highly recommend the video course here. Coming over here and purchasing this to support the channel. And then also, if you need a FileMaker coach, you definitely send an email to support@RC Consulting, and you can get a FileMaker coach a lot cheaper than you can get a fully loaded FileMaker developer. You can save a lot of money doing that. So that's it for today. I'll catch you tomorrow. We'll be doing more awesome FileMaker training.
Guys just stepped up the whole way. Calm, cool, collected the quarterback. Great read, good patience. More importantly, great job up front protecting this quarterback to give you a chance. And that's all you can ask for.
Try to rally down 10. 9:25 to go here in the fourth. Short motion by Amendola from the left. Brady takes the shotgun snap, stands in, throws it left. Amendola reaches up and starts a high throw and lands inside the 10, rolling to the 9. Ball slightly behind him, but Danny makes the grab.